Recently in my own campaign for re-election, I had an opponent who was just bashing me for not doing anything and never got anything done for the area and all this stuff. This kid flew in from New York. He hadn't been in the area for 10 years, and then he comes in and he starts lobbing bombs at me for not doing enough. And I'm like, wait a minute, I've been here in the foxhole for 15 years. Where you been? That kind of thing. I took it personally. The Buddha story about if someone's shooting an arrow at you, don't be there. Well, my ego was there, so I got hurt. And it was like, well, how dare you question me, I think anger was the initial feeling that I had. And then you work your way through that, and then you get a little deeper understanding of where the other person is coming from. And that ultimately gets you to some level of compassion for them. And an understanding of, all right, let it go. Everything's going to be fine. Make your arguments. Tell people what you've done. Don't judge this kid. He's gotten you focused now. So thank you for that. And, let's go.
Democratic Congressman Tim Ryan has had his fair share of political opponents since first winning an election to the House of Representatives in 2002, representing northeastern Ohio. In today's political climate, what has kept Tim going is mindfulness. He's on the House Appropriations Committee and has also created the Quiet Time Caucus in the House of Representatives, where members of Congress and staff meet regularly to meditate. He sums up this work in A Mindful Nation. It's a book about how to reduce stress and capture the spirit of the United States. On each episode of our show, we have a happiness guinea pig try out a science-based practice to increase kindness, connection, and happiness even around our opponents. This week, we're honored to have my friend, Congressman Tim Ryan, on our show. Tim, thanks so much for joining us on The Science of Happiness.
It's so great to be reconnected with you.
I wanted to ask you about how you discovered mindfulness and started to build meditation into your political life. How'd that go?
I went on a 5-day retreat right after the 2008 election, and that blew the top off my head, and I've been meditating ever since.
When you started to integrate mindfulness into your life as a political presence in our country, how did it change your thinking about politics, about our country, about your constituents?
It's got me focused on the fact that we've got to figure out how to come together. Just seeing things disintegrate before our very eyes is really frustrating. So it helps me kind of stay on task, stay focused on that. It helps with focus, and then not judging. I mean, it's really been helpful for me just to not judge. It's so easy to slip into that mode. The other side's stupid and the other side's wrong, and they're, on and on. We could live in that space forever.
Tim, you're at that life where you've got your hands full. You're a parent of 3 kids, including your youngest son, Brady, who's just 4 years old. And you're also navigating your work on the Hill and your home life and being on the campaign trail. How in the world do you keep a mindfulness practice going?
What I try to do is really try to carve out time every day, and I've been really trying to do the breathing techniques before I start my meditation because it seems to get my mind in a place where I can really just drop in. And so I'm normally now doing 10, 15 minutes of breathing before I even start with kind of sitting in silence.
So, Tim, you did the compassion meditation, which is a practice that begins with cultivating feelings of compassion for someone we really care about. And then it transitions to cultivating that same feeling towards somebody we have conflict with, or actually an enemy. What you do is you first find a comfortable place to sit, you relax. There's actually a guided meditation on the Greater Good in Action website that walks you through it.
Take a deep breath and release. For a few moments, just focus on your breath and clear your mind of worries. Notice when you are breathing in and breathing out.
You continue to focus on your breath for 2 minutes, noticing the sensations in your body while you breathe. Then you picture someone who is really close to you. And then you notice what physical sensations are around your heart. Then you notice how this love makes your heart feel. So, Tim, who did you think about in this first step of the compassion meditation?
I would think of Brady, who's just, love of our lives and just the immediate, pure connection to joy. Just warmth and relaxation. And it's almost real to the extent, you just sit there with your eyes closed. It's almost like the dude's right there.
Did you see his face? Or
yeah.
hear his voice?
Just big, smiley, shit-eating grin, on his face that just cracks me up. And so to kind of connect to that when you're not with him is just amazing. And so it just, that was great.
With Brady, first you sort of walk through these phrases or say them in your mind about wishing Brady happiness and freedom from suffering and the like.
May you be peaceful.
May you have happiness.
May you have love and feel love.
May you be free from suffering.
May you have joy.
May you experience joy and ease.
I don't know if I followed exactly what the phrases are, but, my version of that, which I think is important to kind of make sure you make it your own.
And then you think about that same person, and it gets a little trickier. You focus your attention on a time when that individual was suffering emotionally or physically. What did that feel like in your heart?
Very real pain. You're empathizing with him, whether he's sick or hurt himself or got his feelings hurt. If you sit there and you focus on that, it's real. And that's the goal. How do you try to feel the pain? That's how you connect.
Compassion for children, especially our own, can be easy. It's hardwired into us by evolution. But we're not as great at showing compassion towards ourselves. The next step in the compassion meditation is to think about a time in your own life where you were feeling suffering, and then you share that love and compassion you felt for your son Brady with yourself. How did it feel to orient the compassion towards yourself?
I haven't done that in a long time. And it's almost like just accepting that you have pain in your heart from wherever it came from. And that was very relaxing almost, because you didn't have to fight and pretend like you're a tough guy. And so it was very decompressing. It was like, okay, I don't have to pretend like I'm the only human being who's made it through 45 years of my life without being heartbroken. You just kind of sit with it. You realize how that pain helped you in some way, develop in some way, got you where you are in some way. Because a lot of times that heartbreak's a big motivator.
The next move then is to think about a neutral person who you don't have strong feelings, positive or negative, and you start to direct some compassion towards that person. Who was that?
Well, I won't give the name, but family member.
Man, you have a neutral person in your family. I can't believe it.
Yeah, well, they're not all neutral. You begin to see what you bring to this neutral experience that sometimes isn't so neutral. So, you got a person like, I'm neutral with that guy, and it's like, and you're a little bit, and you're like, maybe I'm not neutral with it. No. Maybe there's something there. But, wishing them to not have suffering and wishing them joy and peace and love. So that was kind of a nice transition into some of the more complicated relationships.
Yeah. Next comes the hardest part, where you practice the compassion meditation, where you really focus your attention on somebody you don't like, you're in conflict with, who's insulted you, who's caused problems in your life.
You're taking on emotions that you're not afraid of them. You're not trying to push them down. It's the same kind of thing as breathing in the negative emotion or the negative thought. And, as a tough guy, old football player, quarterback, I'm like, yeah, bring that fear in here. I'll breathe you right in, baby. And so
chew it up and spit it out.
You're not gonna control me. I really like that, because I think you have a tendency unwittingly to really stuff that stuff down and to really try to ignore it. And so to breathe it in and face it.
Take it on.
Yeah, you take it on. And then it helps you with conflict outside of the practice, obviously, which I'm assuming is the whole purpose here of all this, is not to just do it when you're on the cushion, but applying it. What's powerful about this practice, and it's not just the wishing them well in so many different ways, but it's also, I think, understanding why they are like they are, and how the negativity that you feel about them comes and stems from some negativity that they got from somewhere else, and they are in some ways perpetuating that. And then the practice is really about letting go of all that energy, and it's almost a forgiveness practice in so many ways.
Yeah. Finally, you open up the practice to the entire world, wishing happiness and joy and love and the absence of suffering for all human beings. Who did you think about?
One of the committees I sit on is the committee that funds the Defense Department. And our operations intimately connected with everybody in the world. And to really see the suffering in these places. The whole issue now is caravans coming to the United States about the wall and all this other stuff. And the reality of it is there are a couple countries in Central America where there's so much pain, there's so much suffering, and parents getting shot if they try to protect their kids. And so it got so bad where people, the best option for parents is to pay somebody to take their kid and run them through the desert and through Mexico and try to get to the United States. When you think about compassion for all the world, my mind kept going to these countries and these families that are there that are experiencing so much pain, and how we are intimately connected with the problems that are happening in that country.
Yeah.
And the real compassionate move would be to try to stabilize it ahead of time so it doesn't get to that point.
Tim, now that you've tried the compassion meditation, do you think there's room for something like this on Capitol Hill, especially in our political climate?
Whether it's a compassion meditation or just straight, slowing down. I was just on a joint interview with a Republican colleague of mine. He said, the problem around here is nobody listens to each other. And these practices are inherently teaching you how to deeply listen. And that is going to be the trick of us getting out of this mess that we're in right now, is for us really to start listening to each other and having compassion for each other. I mean, if someone has a view on how to fix something that's not your view on how to fix something, they have a reason why they think that way. But if you really sit down and your intention is to solve a problem, you will get there if that's what you want. And that starts with listening.
Tim, we are honored to have you on The Science of Happiness and grateful for the bold work you're doing out in the world.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. Keep up the great work.
We live in politically tense times. The polarization between blue and red or Democrats and Republicans has really increased. Makes it hard to connect with and to humanize the people who are on the other side of ideological disputes. The real test of compassion is to see how it works in these kinds of contexts. I love how Congressman Tim Ryan is trying to bring the practices of compassion and mindfulness to Capitol Hill. This isn't just about good intentions, there's actually solid science behind it. Helen Wang is an expert in the science behind the benefits of training ourselves to be more compassionate. In one recent study, she randomly divided people into two groups. One group was told to think about a specific experience in their lives differently so that they felt less upset and stressed. The other group listened to the audio of the compassion meditation 30 minutes a day for 2 weeks.
After 2 weeks, we found that the people who learned compassion were more generous in an economic exchange task to a stranger. They witnessed an unfair economic exchange that a stranger went through, and they were more willing to spend their own money, and it came out of their study payment, to help out that person they didn't even know. And then we found changes in the brain that corresponded to how generous they were. So in the brain scanner, we showed them pictures of people suffering before and after the 2 weeks and asked them to evoke a sense of compassion towards those people who were suffering. And the more changes we saw in empathy networks, the more generous they were to strangers. So basically, the more they could change their brain to be more empathic while regulating, right? You have to be less distressed in response to someone suffering and also focus on their well-being. The more it actually changed their behavior. What I like to say is that although you're tending to things internally when you're meditating, for some people can actually change how you act towards people on the outside. So it's internal to external transformation.
If you'd like to try the compassion meditation or other happiness practices, visit our Greater Good in Action website at ggia.berkeley.edu and then email us at greater@berkeley.edu and tell us how it went. I'm Dacher Keltner. Thanks for joining me on The Science of Happiness. Our podcast is a co-production of UC Berkeley's Greater Good Science Center and PRI-PRX, with production assistance from Jenny Cataldo and Ben Manila of BMP Audio. Our producer is Shuka Kalantari. Our associate producer is Lee Mengistu. Our executive producer is Jane Park. Our editor-in-chief is Jason Marsh. Special thanks goes to UC Berkeley's Graduate School of Journalism. Join us for a live recording of an episode of The Science of Happiness and hear from Jack Kornfield and me and lots of other speakers at our first ever 3-day Science of Happiness event, held in Northern California near Santa Cruz. Learn more at ggsc.berkeley.edu.